Erika of Grapefruit and Gardenia Designs and the Knit Kind podcast. We're back to our regularly scheduled programming a little bit. So welcome back. It's post Rhinebeck, it's post Vermont Sheep and Wool. It's almost the end of October, which is often a whirlwind. So I wanted to just come in today, catch up on things that we regularly catch up on, share a few opportunities, and just see how you are doing. On that note, acknowledge there continue to be a lot of very difficult things happening globally. So wherever you are and whatever you're going through related to weather, governments, wars, etc., know that this is a place to come to when you want to unite around fiber for everyone, where everyone is not only welcome but wanted. And it's a place to acknowledge that things are not great in the world, but also to focus on fiber and things that do bring us joy and do bring us together. So having said all of that, thank you for tuning in. If you are new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I do always try to say that if you like the podcast, please give a thumbs up or a share, subscribe. It does help us find others who are like-minded in the sense that we want to focus on the positive. We want to focus on kindness within the knitting community and fiber arts community. And we want to come together with a shared love. Okay, so what am I wearing? I'm wearing my artist shawl by Natasha Hornby. And she's also known as Moonstruck Knits. So I'll stand up a little bit to show you how I'm wearing it. Today I have a shawl pin in because I have a lot of things on my to-do list today that will not involve wearing a beautiful shawl, unfortunately. But I did want to start the day by wearing it, so this is easy to take on and off. And I wanted to give a couple comments on why I love wearing shawls as well, because I know some people struggle to style them. Some people love knitting them but never wear them. Some people put them on the back of their couch as like just a little thing to put on when they're cold over their shoulders and they don't want a whole blanket. And there's so many great things about shawls that I thought we'd just give shawls a continued ongoing shout out because they have come up quite a bit recently. So the other day I actually did wear this all day. You can see I finished it at Rhinebeck last year, and I just love the color palette. You can find all of the details of my projects on my Ravelry pages. Knitty Elf 40 is my profile, and it's always linked in the comments, or not comments, the description box, show notes, whatever you like to call them. But I did wear this the other day, all day, including out to lunch, and I wear it really like a sweater, sort of. I wore it with my jewel. I always want to say Yule, but what do we call these? Fasteners. So this is kind of old school. I got this. I think they've changed the design, and actually one of the only things I regret not picking up at Rhinebeck, at Wool and Affair, I think it was some more fasteners. I looked at them and I think my brain was just so tapped out. So might have to ask Santa to put some in my stocking because they do have a new back design now, which someone in my house, anyway, I can't remember if it was Nikki or Sally in my house, but I think one of them had the more recent version. So mine still has like a screw-in back. And by the way, don't look at my fingernails. I have not had time to prioritize them, but mine still has this screw-in back and then a piece of leather so that you can screw it on and off and attach it. Some of the newer ones, I guess, have a little bit of a different way that they fasten. So they're these, pretty clips. I do think with a shawl of this weight, I wore it with only one the other day, but I think if I had two, it would have stayed in place even better. So just one thing about a way to style a shawl. The things I do like about it, like I was saying, it's sort of in place of a sweater. So you can wear it over any just simple long sleeve, of course, also short sleeve, but shirt underneath. It is in many ways just as warm as a sweater, but you can make it kind of more breathable depending on how you style it. You can change sizes, which I don't know about you, but I certainly change sizes, and the shawl still fits, even if a sweater maybe would feel a little too cropped or a little too tight or a little too off in different places. The shawl's gonna be with you forever as long as you take care of it. And you don't need to wash it as much. I know a lot of people don't wash their sweaters that much either. Mine tends to be just what I'm wearing it for and what I have underneath, and some of them I do only wash once a year, and other ones I have to wash more frequently, especially if I'm not wearing anything underneath it. So shawls, I always have something underneath it. I suppose it could be a little racy shawl calendar if you didn't have anything underneath it, but gotta laugh at some things these days, right? Okay, so that's why I like to wear large shawls. And like I said, this one is Artist. It was fun to knit. It was a long project for me, partially because I intentionally made it a longer project. For the yarn for my Artist, I used the Sonder yarn Sunday Morning DK. And it's just, it's so beautiful the way that the different breeds have a kind of a glow to some of them, especially this golden one. So the colors were Full English, Offline is the gray, Toast and Honey is the yellow, 501s, like the jeans, like denim, is the blue, and the brown is Espresso Yourself. So I had a lot of fun. I planned out my colors using colored pencils and just kind of sketching out how I wanted them to fall. This is a true mosaic shawl. So you have heard me talk a little bit before about how many of us, either for simplification or because it's the way it's designated in a Ravelry database or something, we will interchangeably use the terms mosaic and slip stitch knitting when we're referring to knitting that uses only one color per row. But they are a bit different. And mosaic knitting, this is mosaic knitting, where what you're looking at is a pattern that looks like you'd be using stranded colors, but you're only using one color at a time, and you're working it back and forth and slipping the non-showing color, if you will. So you're going back and forth, and for this, it truly is 2 rows really make what you think of as one row of knitting because you're working each color separately. I might talk about it more sometime, but in terms of a quick summary for today, I think that's good. Slip stitch knitting is more like what's in a lot of my patterns. So we'll talk about it more, but just a little subtlety. This is kind of true mosaic. So if you really want to learn on a smaller project, but if you want to jump into a big one, then go for one of her shawls, or even her sweaters I think she has, because they are stunning designs in my opinion. I just love her aesthetic. So how about some finished objects and some whips? I talked a lot about Rhinebeck, the Rhinebeck experience and acquisitions last time, but we didn't really get into projects that I have or things that I've finished. So I told you I had some spins. This one is now all skeined up, and see how plump and poofy this looks? It is that amazing and plump and poofy. I'll hold it up so you can see. This was my getting back into spinning spin after having not done it for a few months this summer. This is the softest, squishiest skein of yarn. I love it. I could just feel it. It's so unbelievably nice. And I've started being responsible now. I'm putting tags on it so I can know what it is in the future. So I'll read from the tag, even though I know it's the Fox Hill Farm 100% Cormo. And this is from Alice Field. She often wins a lot of recognition at Rhinebeck. I don't know if she enters her fleeces into like the New England Fiber Festival, which is coming up this weekend, or not, but very, very well known locally to us. And I bought some finished yarn from her, but the spin, like the fiber going through your fingers, was just amazing. The other thing I want to mention about the Cormo is that when I feel this, now I can really appreciate also feeling the North Bay Fiber Elemental line, which is also 100% Cormo. So if you're not a hand spinner and you're looking for some Cormo that's readily available, I know there's a little bit of maybe a lag in some of the supply with that right now, but check out North Bay Fiber. I recently had a sample of my Lifelines shawl made in the sport version, and it is just, it feels very, very similar. The feeling of the 100% Cormo, especially when you're looking at a really well made one, is just soft as you can possibly imagine. So I imagine that if you do have any sensitivity to wool, Cormo is one you might want to check out for being more agreeable with your skin, especially if it's close to your neck or other sensitive areas like a hat line, hat brim. Okay, so that is my finished spin. I have a still damp spin to show you. And let's see if we can do this. I have a couple things hanging up that are still damp. So this is a fiber I bought last year at Rhinebeck from Storyteller Stitches. I think it's Storyteller Stitchery. They unfortunately were not at Indie Untangled this year. They had a last minute family emergency, which I saw only after the fact. So I hope that things are going better there, but I do want to share just the beautiful spin. This colorway was called Anne of Green Gables. It is, I believe, 100% merino. And I just loved the colors last year. So you can sort of see here, it's almost like a warm glow sun. And then it's got some mint green. So it's got this like warm golden with a pink that's not an in-your-face pink, if you know what I mean. So it is pink. There's no question it's pink. But it's the kind of pink that you see in the sky at like a sunrise or a sunset. And that's what I think of when I see this. And then the mint green in there. So I don't know what I'll do with it yet. I'm gonna see. I actually think these two would be pretty compatible, and that could make a neat project, a little bandana cowl or something. I'm gonna show you something that I just knit with my handspun. So why don't we jump into that? Because then we can talk a little bit about handspun and what to use it for once you've had the joy of spinning it into yarn. Okay, so the other project I have to show you is something I knit with my handspun recently. It's also still damp. So take a peek. Now, the handspun is the dark yarn, which is a natural color I'll talk about in a second. And the contrast color here is from Peaked Mountain Homestead, Knit or Dye. And it's this beautiful, very subtly variegated. You might be thinking, is it even? Is it the way the light's hitting it? It is this beautiful opalescence. So I'll talk about that in a second as well. So what I did is I've wanted to use more of my handspun in my knitted projects and potentially write up the patterns so that they are designs that you can either use your own handspun you've purchased from someone, or these beautiful single skeins you might pick up at a fiber festival and then you're not sure what you want to do with them. So let's talk about what I did with mine and where it came from and all the things. Okay, so I started with saying that the dark color here, the natural, is my handspun. And it is, I have the labels organized now. This is take 2 or 3 or 4. Underhill Fibers is a spinning and carding mill. Jenny Smith is the contact in Gorham, Maine. And the specific, I did have a chance to speak with her at a fiber festival, and I found out that Sweetie indeed was, she's no longer with us, but she was the name of the ewe from which this fleece came. And she is a Cormo Finn BFL cross. How cool is that, right? So we talk about breed specific, and then also there are all of these crosses, and we get kind of the best properties of all of them when the fiber is processed well. So I bought this, it was 2 ounces. I bought it for $10 at Port Fiber a couple years ago now, 2 years ago, I think. But like I said, I've gotten to meet Underhill Fibers at New Hampshire Sheep and Wool, and they've been at other shows as well. And so I did my best to take some notes on this, even though I'm still just a recreational spinner doing it for fun and wanting to use it in projects, and then maybe give you some ideas about patterns that you could use your own hand spun in. So my loose notes here are that I had about 87 loops at 55 inches per loop. That translated to about 133 yards. And I did this in sort of a semi-woolen spin because I wanted to really have that lightness and I don't know, kind of honor what the fleece felt like it wanted to be to me. So I started with about 69 grams. And when I wrapped it, for those of you who track, I had about 8 to 9 wraps per inch. And I haven't weighed it yet, but I will afterwards. I'll show you how much I have left. A good bit. So I'm gonna have a better sense of how many yards once I do my end weight and figure out for the hat if I reverse the pattern. So see, when I'm doing the hat, if I feel like I need to, I could make this my background color and this my foreground color if I feel like I need a little bit more yardage. And I could do that. I think I'm showing you the jog. That's not too attractive. You probably didn't notice, but I did when I was holding it up. So because what I could do is I could do the brim with this and then do the majority of the crown, because I don't think I would decrease in this pattern. I think I'd end it and then do a different kind of decrease at the top, but I'm figuring that out. And so we'll talk about this. I've done this take so many times, I don't know if I've done it in the right order, but we'll find out in editing. So this is the Knit or Die, which is from Peaked Mountain Homestead, and it is Moonshadow variegated. So you can see, as I was talking about, this really subtle variegation from like a light blue-green to a pink. And then as I continue with my center pole, it's going to continue with pink and then go into this beautiful natural gray color. It reminds me of the opal essence that's on top of an opal or a moonstone, sort of that iridescent type look. And I think it's amazing that it's over this Shetland fin that has a dark natural color to it already, or maybe medium. Certainly oatmeal-y, heathery, if you can see. So it's very unique. I talked about it when I first got it at New Hampshire Sheep and Wool last year, and I'm excited to be using it. It's beautiful. It's got a really nice hand to it. I'm gonna see if I can get a little bit of information for you. They are out of New Hampshire. I'm like 99% sure it's New Hampshire, not Vermont. I think I saw it on here. And so it's Andy and Rachel, and Andy mentioned that he does work in the co-op at Green Mountain Spinnery as well, where this was spun. I think it's really important and interesting, to me at least. It might not be important to you. Hopefully it's at least interesting to you to understand when you go to the fiber festivals that not only does a company like Green Mountain Spinnery have a booth there selling their own yarn, but when you ask around at all of the small producers where their yarn is spun, you'll hear Green Mountain Spinnery from quite a few of them. And it's vital to the industry, because we don't have small producers if they have wool that they cannot get processed. And that's everything from skirting to scouring to the milling to, if they don't do it themselves, the dyeing. And so when you're looking at the really small producers, through producers like North Bay Fiber and, previously Brooklyn Tweed, much bigger, but is now no longer producing yarn, or others that I've talked about, if they're not doing things all themselves, then somewhere along the supply chain, there's a lot of vulnerability. So I've said it before, I am a fan of Green Mountain Spinnery. I'm going to talk about them more in a minute, but also to give them a shout out for what they do as a co-op for other smaller producers. It's extremely important. So support whoever you can, whenever you can, who's really doing their part for so many people. Okay, so that's a cowl. to be named later. Probably that will be with a hat to be named later. We'll sort it all out, but I wanted to show you what it's actually like to use the hand spun once we make these pretty skeins, whether I have, you know, the naturals or the beautiful colors, and how they can work together too. Oh, and I don't want to forget to mention my beautiful project bag that I'm keeping them in. So this bag was purchased from Paula Ahrens at Vermont Sheep and Wool because I saw it and it was so, so beautiful. And she said her friend, Lynne Fallon, makes the bags and they're very reasonably priced. This beautiful project bag was $30 at Vermont Sheep and Wool, and all of us makers know how much goes into making these. It's got a beautiful feel to it. It is lined. Yeah, the material is beautiful. The craftsmanship is beautiful. So if you're interested in this, I don't know if Lynne has her own website, but also through Paula, you could check out these bags. And Paula is the Dancing Pony Sheep Farm. Okay, so that's finished objects, finished spin, a finished knitted item. How about some works in progress? I can't remember if I showed you, so I'm gonna show you this really quickly because I cannot remember if right before Rhinebeck I showed you. I've made zero progress since Rhinebeck, so I'm not gonna dwell. This is my Heart Home sock by Wool and Pine. I have turned the heel and I am basically onto the gusset here and then onto the foot. And so I'm enjoying it. I just remembered last night I need to pick it up again if I'd like to finish it this winter. But I'm really enjoying having a few different projects going again, which used to be my norm and lately hasn't been. I've been much more of a monogamous knitter since I started designing. So I have this in the little bag I showed you before Rhinebeck. They're great for walking and knitting or just carrying around a small project. And it's by Cheryl Desjardins. She's in my fiber shed. She does the natural dyeing and then she does the sewing of them. You've seen this shape around quite a bit if you went to Rhinebeck. There were a lot of people embracing that shape, including the Mabel bags. So I didn't actually get over to that booth, but it's a story for another time, right? Okay, so works in progress. In my Vermont Sheep and Wool tote, which I told you I got because it's a great sweater size and I will be using it for sweaters, but in the meantime, we're still talking about shawls today. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the Green Mountain shawl project, but I wanted to show you that I did, in fact, this was my Rhinebeck knit at the house. I didn't do much knitting at Rhinebeck itself. Oh, a couple rounds on a plain vanilla sock, that was it. But at the house, we did do more knitting and sitting around, and I thought that I would get started on my next sharing day shawl that I'm doing with the Green Mountain Knitting Guild. And I showed you the yarn because I wanted to use primarily Vermont yarn in this version and I wanted to use some color. So I'm using at least 4 colors and I'm playing on the original, which just holds the most special place in my heart with the natural colors. But this is all Vermont yarn except for the white creamish Shetland here, which is from New Hampshire, so it's nearby. Well, I say all Vermont yarn. It is all Vermont yarn, except for that one. Some of the fiber is sourced beyond Vermont, but most of it is in Vermont. So I started with my ochre and green, and then I went into my color changing, which is a Making Tracks, and that's the one that has some fiber that's not from Vermont, but is all domestic and is all milled in Vermont. And then I incorporated my Shetland here. So hopefully what you can see is how I'm playing with color to stretch yardage. So here, this is a consistent single tone. What's the word I'm looking for? Not monotone, sounds flat, but this is just a one color, this green. And then here, where it continues with the green and goes into the blue is actually Making Tracks. So that's how I'm stretching the yardage on it. So it kind of flows naturally, but it has the color. I've brought the ochre back in with the cream used the cream through this section, which actually is popping quite nicely on camera, but this gives me something to talk about with you in the future as well, because it is a 2-ply versus the original, which was a 3-ply. And at another venture, or at another moment in conversation, we'll talk about looking and comparing the 2-ply to the 3-ply for this section that is cable-ish. You do it without a cable needle. They're kind of more crossed stitches. And then I brought in this rust color, which on its own looks like I'd put it in the red family, but then when you put it next to other colors, you could put it more in the orange family. So remember the box of 64 Crayola crayons? It's like, is it red orange? Is it orange red? What's the difference between the two? Percentages or what it's next to? And so you sort of see different colors come out. So here, I'll try to hold that up so you can see. And that's with the making tracks again. And this is a section that is a little bit more barber pulled. So, you know, you kind of play with compared to up here. See up here where it's like a more gentle gradient, and then down here you've got more barber pulling. So there's a lot of things. What I love about doing this version is that there's a lot of things that we can talk about either in my knitting classes or workshops or on the podcast in the future about the yarn choices and why you're choosing them and how they're working out, and comparing it to how a pattern is initially written. So my Sharing Day shawl version 2 with, I think this one's going to be bigger too. Can you tell? This one's going to be bigger. Anyway, with mostly Vermont yarn and some colors. And so let's pause here for a second. And I know you all have heard this before, but here's a little bit of breaking news, if you will, about the Green Mountain Knitting Guild Green Mountain Shawl for 2026 that was announced at Vermont Sheep and Wool, and is going to be a knit along until next year's Vermont Sheep and Wool, when people will come together and take a photo. We are going to do, hosted by the Guild, an online kickoff party for the knit along, cast on party, kickoff party, whatever you'd like to call it, on November 10th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I will share that link. If you've tested recently with me, if you were in my workshop retreat at the retreat of Junction Fiber Mill last year, and you gave me your email, I'll send out a notification. You're all invited to attend, especially if you would like to knit along with us over the next year and maybe meet us in Vermont, or even if you can't meet us in Vermont, but you'd like to join us just virtually over the next year and knit yourself a Sharing Day shawl. We'd love to have you join the Zoom call. I will not post the link for it in the show description, because when Zoom links are out there, funny things can happen, but I'm happy to share it with anyone who wants to join, and that invitation was extended by the Green Mountain Knitting Guild. So please reach out to me if you'd like to join that Zoom call and you don't get a link from me because we've interacted recently about something. Sharing Day shawl, knit along, you've got a whole year to do it. It's a lot of fun. Can be a great stash buster or a great reason to go to one of the festivals and pick up 3 natural colors or 3 dyed colors or more if you want to use more. So another quick note about that is that I was very touched yesterday to get a notification that another podcast mentioned Sharing Day shawl, and Becky of another podcast called A Handknit Letter. Becky's the host, and she's from Arkansas. She had heard about me through the Knitting Posse podcast, and Kim, who had mentioned that she came to visit at Vermont Sheep and Wool. So thank you, Kim, for mentioning that, because it's really helping us all connect with each other. And I love that we are connecting people across the country and across the globe around a love of fiber. And so Becky mentioned the Sharing Day shawl, and what just like warmed my heart, tickled my soul, all the things that just bring us joy these days, is that she showed 3 colors of local wool that she picked up in Arkansas that she intends to use to knit Sharing Day shawl. So that's really what the design was originally intended for. It was designed with the 3 colors of natural wool with Melissa Littlefield from Knitting the Stash. And then we had this vision, or I had a vision, and I'm gonna say we because I think that Melissa shares this, the whole thing is really getting people into understanding where their fiber comes from, you know, local sources, and just how much it takes to go from sheep to shawl. So of course, I welcome anyone who wants to knit this in any type of yarn, in any colors, in any size, from any, you know, any place on earth. But having said that, there is something special for people finding it and really making that connection to local producers, small farms, knowing where their fiber came from. Even some people like Sunny who have spun the yarn to knit for it. It just makes it really special. So thank you, Becky, for picking up on that, and I can't wait to see how your shawl turns out. All right. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention. I think this is the only Rhinebeck purchase I forgot to mention, and it's not yarn. It's stitch markers from Katrinkles. And Katrinkles is a Rhode Island company, so not far from me. This little bonus one here, this little, that doesn't want to focus super well, but this is a little Rhinebeck one that they gave anybody who purchased anything. And you can see what I purchased from them are the ones that say like knit two together, slip, slip, knit. And I did because when I was knitting on this at Rhinebeck, it was my social knitting, and even though it's my own pattern and I have it memorized, that's sometimes when things are most dangerous. So I added my make one left and my make one right. Ironically, I didn't make any mistakes on it with social knitting at Rhinebeck. It was not until I got home that I forgot to do one of the increases. So I don't know what that says about me, but anyway, the Katrinkles stitch markers can be fun for just having little reminders about what kind of increase or decrease you want to do. So that was my one Rhinebeck purchase that I got at a Woollen Affair, and I forgot to mention. Let's see. So those are my whips primarily, my works in progress. And I will show you a quick glimpse, but I don't want to go too much into it, into the swatch that I did after I recorded my Rhinebeck recap. So I showed you my Green Mountain Spinnery purchase of mountain mohair. I hadn't used mountain mohair before. It is so beautiful to work with. So I'm gonna show you a super quick glimpse of the swatch. I told you it was for something very specific. The swatch is done. I love it. I'm not gonna put it up close, but I love the colors. I love the feel of it. I love the way that it's doing exactly what I wanted for the swatch. So stay tuned. That is for a sweater. All right, so let's geek out a little bit for a second about the yarn itself, the mountain mohair. So you can see what this looks like. First of all, it's woolen spun and it is light as a feather. But what I wanted to show you, and keep in mind, I'm not the producer here, so I'm speaking as a designer and as a knitter on the end, you know, the end use, not on the making of it. But when you look up the specs of mountain mohair, I'm gonna read them exactly to you from the Ravelry page, which is, you know, entered by Green Mountain Spinnery. It's a worsted weight yarn, 140 yards to 57 grams. So keep in mind it's it's woolen spun. So you're going to have more yardage for less weight because of the process of being woolen spun versus worsted spun. It is 40% Targhee wool, 30% goat mohair, and 30% wool. And it's listed as a single. And so I did not think of using it for certain designs because of that. But what I want to show you is fortuitous to the fact that I was working with the knit or dye. If you remember when I showed, if you watched the episode, when I showed the knit or dye and I unwound it, even though it's woolen spun and it looks like a single ply, there's actually 3 plies within it. And it's not totally dissimilar from the mountain mohair. So on the mountain mohair, it looks like and is listed as a single, but if I start to unwind it, you almost see more. Let's see if I can do this. Can you see that? Can you see those sort of 3 distinct pieces in there? So, excuse me. So this is sort of a new-ish discovery for me in my geeking out explorations of yarn. because when I do show you this more close up at a future date, you'll see that there's quite a bit of texture to it. And looking at the mountain mohair, I did see designers who are very accomplished use it for cables or other things with texture. And so it's interesting and not necessarily what you'd think when you're first looking at the label for what it is. It is absurdly soft. The mohair in it just gives it a beautiful halo and softness. And of course, with all of Green Mountain Spinnery's yarns, I think their color palettes are beautiful. So if you're doing color work or you're doing something with stripes, it's a great yarn choice. So anyway, stay tuned for more on how I'm working with it. But in the meantime, if you're looking for a project, consider mountain mohair. If you're looking for a worsted weight project, if you want a woolen spun yarn, if you're looking for a nice color palette, softness, and something that does not lose the texture. It might not be the same as a worsted spun 3-ply yarn, but it gives nice texture to something, especially something if you're going to have all over and you don't necessarily want it to have like massive depth to it, but you want it to have texture. It's a great choice. So that is my somewhat layman review of that, but I'll continue to learn more, and it would be really interesting to talk to the folks at Green Mountain Spinnery about the actual process of it and the plying and how they do determine whether something's a single or a 3-ply that looks like a single. I'm really curious, so I'm raising those questions for all of us. I have a few other topics, but I think that's a full episode. We did whips, we did finished objects and some spinning, and we talked a bit about shawls, and I invited you to join our Zoom call. So I'm gonna save the other topics for later. I'll tease them a little bit here. You can let me know if you think that they'd be helpful. I thought about, especially as it relates to showing all these beautiful shawls, to talking about some tips for reading charts. I think I've probably mentioned it in and out of a few other episodes, but the more I work as a designer and then work with test knitters and see where people's questions are, their curiosities, where people have no problem, where they struggle, when there are people who, are deferring to written instructions versus charted instructions, let me know if you think it would be interesting to have a short podcast or a medium length podcast that's dedicated to tips to reading charts, whether you are completely new to them or you are more advanced and used to reading them, but just to have a few more tools in your toolbox, I guess. So that's an episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that whatever is going on in your micro world, you are finding joy in fiber, you are finding community in fiber. If you are not, if you're feeling, alone or isolated or sad, please reach out to people. Reach out in whatever way works for you in your community. It might be online. Leave a comment. Know that we're all here for each other, even when it sometimes feels like we're not. But I hope that you are able to find joy where you can, find peace where you can, and keep making. Knit kindly, live kindly, and I'll see you again soon.